Hi everyone, my name is Hannah and I work with the children and youth in the Episcopal Church in the Diocese of Maryland. We've been making some videos to get ourselves ready to come and worship back together. It's very exciting that our church buildings are getting ready to reopen. We are able to gather back in our church buildings together or maybe outside on the lawn. During this time, we are learning a new way to be church together, and worship is going to look different when we regather. Did you know that there are people who make decisions about how we worship in church? Priests and deacons and a group of people who are the leaders called the vestry come together and pray and listen and do research to figure out what is the best way for our church to come back and regather to worship God. That's what they've been doing. They've been praying and listening to our leaders and doctors and scientists to figure out how we can come back together to our churches and worship. So that's going to happen very soon, and it's going to look different. So we know that when we come back to worship, we're going to have to wear masks, and we're going to need to be socially distant, which we've talked about. Now, there are a lot of churches, and each one is in a different place and has different people. Each group of leaders is working really hard to figure out what is best for their church on how to regather. So, how your church regathers and does worship might look different than how the church down the street does it, or how your school friend's church is doing worship. It might all be a little bit different. But there are lots of different ways to worship God. You can sing, you can pray, you can dance, you can take communion. So we know that worship will look different. Here are some ways that it might look different. First of all, communion will be different. Some churches will not be having communion when we regather, and some will. If your church has communion, they will not be serving wine because we're still trying to keep people safe and healthy. So if your church does have communion, it will only be bread. But even this part is going to look weird, right? You might get bread or a wafer, or maybe you'll bring bread from home. Maybe you'll be sitting on a picnic blanket instead of going up to the front of the altar to receive your wine or your bread. No wine, just bread. It's going to look different, okay? And that's okay. We are all learning how to be church during this time, right? Another thing is singing. There's going to be no singing when we come back to church. I have to tell you, I am super bummed. Singing to God is one of my favorite ways to worship and show God that I love Him. But we're not going to be able to do that because we need to keep people safe and healthy. So when you're at home, you can sing to God. You can sing praises and sing God's glory and have your parents help you look up hymns or your favorite God songs to sing at home. But when we're in church, we're not going to be singing. And that's going to be a big bummer for me. But I know that I have a responsibility to help keep people safe and healthy, and I'm going to do that. I'm going to do my part and not sing. So everywhere is going to look a little bit different. So you need to talk to your parents and to the adults in your household and talk to your priest and ask them, how are we going to worship? How is it going to look different than before? Because we want to be ready so we can keep people safe. We are all learning, even the adults, even the priest. We are all learning how to best worship God together so everyone is safe and healthy. Many blessings, everyone.